Right, today's class we're looking at 3.2 general formula problems, and we'll also look at 3.3, which are rate of work problems. Okay, so in a given formula, you might be asked to solve for a missing quantity. So you'll be given certain parts of the formula, and then you'll be asked to solve for one of the variables. So in this first example, the given formula is ax plus by equals az. So if x equals 13, b equals 5, y equals 7, and z equals 8, what is the value of a? So the first step we have to do in a question like this is substitution. So we'll start with substitution, and then we'll solve for the missing variable. All right, so let's start by substitution. Okay. So we have a times x, and we're told x is equal to 13. So make sure you're using brackets. This should be review to always use brackets when we're substituting. Next, we have b times y. We're told b is 5, so substitute 5. And then y, we are told, is 7, just like that. And then it's equal to a times z. A is what we're solving for. And then z is equal to 8. All right, so all I've done so far is just substituted. Now I'm going to multiply out. So 13 and a, 13 times a, that becomes 13a. And then we have 5 times 7, so plus 35. And it's equal to a times 8, which we can just write as 8a. All right. Okay, so next we're gonna collect like terms. We want our variable on one side of the equation, so we'll subtract the 8a with the 13a. Remember to do the opposite operation. And then we're going to move the positive 35 to the right-hand side of the equation. So we're subtracting 35 and subtracting 35 on that side. All right, 8a minus 8a, that is gone there. Positive 35 minus 35, that's gone there. So 13a minus 8a, that leaves me with 5a. And it's equal to negative 35. All right, and the last step here would be to divide both sides by the 5. And we're left with a is equal to negative 7. Okay, so let's go over this one. So we have 3x plus 4z equals 5z, and most of you noticed that there was no y in the equation. It's just there as extra info. All right, so just like sometimes when you have a word problem and they'll provide you with lots of extra info and you have to pick out what you need to solve the question. All right, so don't get confused if there's extra information. So our formula, let me just start the recording, sorry. All right, so in this example, we are trying to solve for x. So all I've done so far is I substituted in the z equals 4. So here, and we substituted in here, and now we can go ahead and solve for x. The other thing we noted was there was extra information given, y equals 5. There is no y in the equation. Okay, so we have 3 plus 16 equals 20. We're going to subtract 16 on both sides. That gives me 3x equals 20 minus 16. It's 4. And we'll just divide by 3 on both sides. That leaves me with just x equals 4 over 3. Or if we put it into a mixed fraction, it's 1 and 1/3. And if you put it in decimal, that's okay as well. 1.3, the 3 is repeating. All right, next example, we have use the density formula, D equals m over v, solve for volume. if density equals 3.5 and mass, the M here represents mass. You might remember this from grade 8 when we were looking at density. All right, so let's just rewrite the formula here. So density equals mass over volume. We're solving for density. We're told that, oh no, we are solving for volume. We're solving for volume. All right, so we are solving for volume, and we're given density is 3.5. There's no units given, so we'll just put 3.5 here. Our mass is 49, and we are solving for V. All right, so you can use cross multiplication here to solve. This here is over 1. So when we solve for V, we do 1 times 49. And then we're just going to divide by 3.5. Okay, and then just put that in your calculator. And I get 14. So therefore, our volume is 14. And we're not given any units here, so we'll just say 14 units. Next example, the formula for the volume of a cylinder is V equals pi r squared h. Solve for the radius, that's the r, of the cylinder, and you're given the volume. The volume is 78.5 centimeters cubed. The height is 1 centimeter, and for pi, we're just going to use 3.14. All right, so you are solving for r radius. All right, so for this next example, sometimes for these types of problems, it's a good idea to kind of list out all the information from the question. So we have our volume, we have our height, we know what pi is, and we are solving for a radius. So let's substitute everything in. So we have 78.5 for the volume. I'm just going to leave pi as is for now, and then I have r squared, and then I just have the 1 for the height. All right, so we need to isolate the r. So I'm just going to divide the pi on both sides. And I'll get rid of pi on the right side. So now we can go ahead and divide. So 78.5 divided by the 3.14. And that'll give me r squared times 1, which is just r squared. All right, so in your calculator, 78.5 divided by 3.14, that gives me 25. All right, so what we know is 25 is equal to r squared. All right, so remember the opposite of r squared is to take the square root. All right, so you've got to take the square root of 25 to solve for r. So therefore 5 is equal to r. And we are working with centimeters, so therefore we can say the radius is 5 centimeters. Next type of problems we're looking at today, 3.3 rate of work problems. So rate of work problems occur when we have 2 or more people or pipes or lawnmowers, whatever, attempting to complete one task. All right, so let's take a look at our first example. So Stephen can row across the lake in 15 minutes. Joey can row across the lake in 20 minutes. And Terry can row across the same lake in 30 minutes. If Stephen and Joey are working together and Terry works against them, how many minutes would it take to get across the lake? Right, so in this type of question, the first thing we have to do is set a variable. So we'll just set x. So let x represent or basically equal the time. Okay, the time it will take to row across the lake. So we know that Stephen and Joey are working together, all right, and Stephen can row across the lake in 15 minutes. So we're going to write that out as x over 15 plus, because Stephen and Joey are working together, and Joey can row across the lake in 20 minutes. So plus x over 20. And then it tells us that Terry is working against them. So we're going to subtract his time. So x over 30. And that is equal to 1 whole. All right, so now we're just working with fractions. So what we have to do here is get a common denominator. We have 15, 20, and 30. We have to figure out a common denominator. All right, so 15, 20, and 30, the lowest common multiple for the common denominator is going to be 60. All right, so I had to multiply 15 times 4 to give me 60. So therefore I have to multiply the x times 4, which gives me 4x. 20 times 3 gives me 60. So x times 3, that's 3x. And then 30 times 2 is 60. So up top here will be 2x. All right, and that's all equal to 1. Now we can go ahead. I'm just going to go like this. We have 4x plus 3x minus 2x. Okay, so 4 plus 3x, 4x plus 3x is 7x. 7x minus 2x is 5x. So now we have 5x over 60 is equal to 1. Let's go ahead and solve for x. I'm just going to go ahead and use cross multiplication here. So x is equal to 60 times 1, which is 60. And then we divide by x. All right, so we'll solve this how we were doing ratio type equations. So we'll take 5x times 1, which is just 5x, and then 60 times 1, which is 60. And then we'll divide both sides by 5, and then x is equal to 60 divided by 5, which is equal to 12. Right, so how many minutes would it take to get across the lake? It will take 12 minutes. Right, so our next example, one rubber hose can fill a barrel in 12 minutes, and another hose with a larger diameter could fill the same barrel in only 10 minutes. How many minutes would it take to fill the barrel if both hoses were being used? All right, so they're working together, so we're adding. So we have x is equal to time, x over 12 plus x over 10 is equal to 1, and you have to start by getting a common denominator, and then go ahead and solve for x. All right, so our common denominator we can use here is 60. All right, to get from 12 to 60, we have to multiply by 5, so we have to multiply the x by 5, so that gives me 5x. And then 10 times 6 to get me the 60, so we have to multiply that x by 6, that gives me 6x. All right. All right, so just continuing here. So from here, we can now add our fractions. So we end up with 11x over 60 is equal to 1. All right, so from here, 60 times 1 and 11x times 1, just using cross multiplication. All right, so 11x is equal to 60. Divide by 11 on both sides. And our answer is 5.45, and the 4,5 is repeating. So we can just put that dashed line on top to show that it's repeating. And it would be in minutes.